Hey guys, it's Heather, the Butterfly Effect, plant-based extreme weight loss. And today I so enjoyed the interview with Paula, and I really wanted to bring you more of her wisdom. And so I was hoping, Paula, if you wouldn't mind to you had so much great advice for me and for people that are getting started on this way of eating. Would you mind just giving us, Paula's 10 best tips, or what do you think is important for somebody to be successful on this way of eating? In case you didn't see the first interview, I really want you to go back and check it out. Paula has taken off 150 pounds on a whole foods plant-based diet. Very compliant, SOS free, very similar to how I eat, and she's just changed her whole life. So many things have gotten better. So if you didn't check out the first interview, make sure you do it. But now, just because I can't get enough, more from Paula.
And I made some notes because I am not a professional podcaster like Heather, but I do have a few things. The one thing I wanted to mention, I think I talked about that in the other part, that is really key, is if you have a chronic binge disorder, you can certainly heal that. Socializing with food, we, as our culture, whether you're coming to somebody's home or meeting at a restaurant or things like that, it's just assumed that there's got to be tons of food. I grew up in the prairies. We sort of have an attitude in the prairies that if 10 people are coming to visit, you make food for 20, and if half of it's left over when they leave, you've made just enough. And you have to have the fattiest, gooeyest types of foods, but you don't have to socialize with food. You can still get together over a glass of water or go for a walk, or there's a million things that you can do. That is a really huge thing. We realized, my husband and I, that we socialized with food, either one-on-one, traveling, or just meeting up with people. And it's not to say that we don't meet up perhaps at a restaurant or something with people, but first of all, we usually try and make sure that there's compliant food there, or else we just don't meet at the restaurant. The other thing is treating others with food. So I have had, when I went back to sort of my neighborhood, and people didn't recognize me until I started to speak, and one of the key things that I remember is people saying, well, I can't keep my house compliant. I couldn't do this because I can't keep my house compliant because I have grandchildren that come over and they need to have treats. Your grandchildren do not need food that is treats. They just don't. And that's not really even a treat if it's not healthy food. And so think of things to do with them, or games, or again, I remember my grandmothers, both of them, teaching me handwork or things like that. So there's lots of things. You could brainstorm a huge list of things to do with your children, with your grandchildren, that doesn't involve giving them, ice cream or chocolate or cheeseburgers or whatever. Just have a wonderful time with them. And then when it's time to eat, you eat healthy, compliant food. My mentor that I spoke about, she has 5 grandchildren, and they often get the grandchildren either for day visits or, to stay overnight on weekends or things like that. And she feeds them compliant food. And those grandchildren have never, ever, ever once said to her that, I didn't like spending time with grandma because she didn't have a chocolate bar for me or things like that. So that is really key. The other thing is find something passionate to do. And so often people who have chronic binge disorder, all they think about is food. Sometimes even they're gourmet cooks, I guess gourmet sad cooks, but you need to have something else to do to affect change. And so I found in that 2-week period, when I was just trying to figure out how to get going and how to stay compliant and figure this all out, I realized, wow, I've got a lot of extra time on my hand, and in my brain too. I'm not obsessed about food anymore. I know this is good food. I've made it. I know what's on my list and what I can eat. Wow, what do I do with all this extra time? And so I started to think about things that I love to do. And for me, that was handwork, mostly needlework, and reading books. I read a lot of books also. And so I just got busy. And so we mistakenly think that food is our passion, and that's not true. There are, every single person has a passion about something, whether it's going to a garage sale or something athletic and or anything. I mean, there's just a plethora of things. Even my husband, now that he's eating this way, he's remembered things. He's always meditated, but we got him a Japanese flute. He's learning to do that again. And he likes British railways, and so he's building himself something, things like that. So every single person has something, and I just really impress upon you to embrace that.
To kind of find a new focus besides the food.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's sort of my principles, I guess, or, you know, what has worked for me. And I think the last thing is I've always been a person, and I've always sort of coached people to have a little bit of a mantra, because often if we find ourselves in a situation where we're going to, say, business-wise, do something that's not in our best interest, or for example now eating, if I'm going to be tempted to perhaps eat something I shouldn't be eating, it's always good to have a mantra to sort of remind yourself. So along with carrying that little notebook that I talked about, Heather's episode 2, which is so key. If I feel like my little mantra won't work, I can refer to Heather's episode, but I have a mantra and I have to kind of read it. There is nothing I want more than I want to live. Because again, back to that episode, I realized my why was I would die if I kept eating that way. And you know what? There is none of that food that I ever want to eat more than I want to live. That was the big, huge, crystal clear thing that just hit me between the eyes. Was I wasn't ready to die at the age of 56. I was 56 then. I just wasn't ready to die. And so there is nothing, no food, I don't care how amazing it used to taste, that I ever want to eat more than I want to live. So those are sort of the tips that have really worked for me.
That's awesome. And I just want to thank you again for agreeing to do this. Like I was saying before, I know you're kind of a private person.
Yes.
This isn't a normal thing for you to do. But you know, she's made such amazing strides. 150 pounds off, maybe 40 more to go.
Yeah.
And maybe if we're lucky, we'll get a part 3 sometime.
Yeah, 2017 is going to be a huge year for Heather and I. And you know, the other part, the purpose for me being down here with Heather is she is embarking on the next steps in her, her goals and her endeavors. And she already knew what it all was. She just needed a person to sort of help her along that path and fine tune that path. And you guys just need to tune in, refer this podcast to anyone and everyone, because she is now about to get even bigger and better, and there's going to be a lot more from her over the next little bit.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
All right, love you guys. I will be back with another video soon. In the meantime, remember that small changes add up to big results. 240 pounds, 150 pounds. Make those changes and ask yourself, what can I do today that I'm going to thank myself for tomorrow? And then do that. And a plant-based diet, whole foods, no oil. It's a great place to start. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.